Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning. Okay. Let's see. So we did Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah. We're up to Boy Rabbi Lazar. There's a bunch of Boy Rabbi Lazars, but we're holding by. If you have a traditional Gemara, it's 4 lines up from the wide lines. Yitzia Mahu Shetayel Beparam Anisrafim Asir Anisrafim. Boy Rabbi Lazar. It says Reish Aleph. Boy Rabbi Lazar. Hey, we thank Hashem. Learn Torah every day. It's supposed to be learning. We should have the base of English. Okay. So the last question was a question from Rabbi Yirmiyah. He was asking about Lina. If the Paraman Israfim, if the bulls that were burnt outside the temple, procedurally burnt outside the temple, and the Siram Israfim, the goats that were taken out to be burnt, if the concept of Lina applied to them, if they were left overnight, would it have the same prohibition as if it would be a sacrifice that was consumed? Now the question is, does the concept of Yitzia, of sacrifice is not allowed to leave the enclosure? Now, Parman Srafim and Simran Srafim are the procedurally leave the enclosure. That's part of the process. That's the way it's supposed to be done. The only thing is that that's supposed to be after the Zrika Saddam, after the blood was sprinkled. Our question is if it left before the Zrika Saddam. So, Maikami Boyle, the Gemara has the question. What's the question exactly? Why is this they're going to leave anyway, right? It's not considered outside their place. They belong outside. There's a discussion, a similar discussion regarding Kachim Kalim, sacrifices of lesser holiness, like a shlamim, for example, which is eaten in the city of Yerushalayim, not in the courtyard. So over there, when do you take it outside of the azara, outside the courtyard? After the blood's been sprinkled, you then take the meat out and they eat it in the city. So by those sacrifices, if you take it out early, before the Zrika Saddam, so there's an opinion that says, the opinion of Rish Lakish, who holds that flesh of a kachim kalim carbon that went outside before the time is pasul. The expression here, adayin leigias manalatzis. If the time has not yet come for it to leave out, it becomes pasul. So maybe we should say the same thing here. When you if someone takes the param and from outside, the time has not yet come. Miyam rinan, do we say hani mi the basar dein seifelatzis chayva? Over there, by the kachim kalim, there was no obligation to take it out of the courtyard. It's just you were allowed to eat it anywhere in the city. So naturally you would take it out to eat it and to share it with whoever. But there wasn't an obligation to take it out. So maybe we would say that before the time comes, it becomes pasul. Abel hani. But by these, the Seif and Latzis Chayva, where it's not just that you're allowed to take it out, but you actually have to take it out because the procedure is the process is to burn it outside. So then maybe it shouldn't become pasul even if it's before the Zrika Stam. There's a distinction here. I know we're doing a comparison and we're asking, is the comparison perfect? We're comparing it to Kachim Kalim, where there's a problem if you take it out early, but maybe Kachim Kalim, those sacrifices of lesser holiness, there's no obligation to take it out. Over here, there is an obligation at the time. Or do we say, well, what's the difference? If there's an obligation or no obligation, the fact is the time hasn't come. And it's premature. Take it out. Well, Tashima, come and listen to Tani Levi. Levi, we had Levi yesterday as well. Levi was a student of Rebbe. I think we had Levi yesterday. Yeah, Tani Levi. Right at the end of the Gemara. But there it's talking about these animals that she'ira by psul, it's supposed to be she'ira bahem, that it occurred to them psul b'yitziyasei, a disqualification when it's going out. And we were trying to wonder what disqualification was. In the last Gemara, we were concerned about Lina. Over here we say, what is the disqualification when it's going out? My lab, psul yitzia, that it actually went out too early. When it says loy, psul tuma, psul lina, could be a different psul, could be the psul of different disqualification. Maybe it became tame, maybe it became lina. Now, maybe it was left overnight, which is funny because the Gemara before said, oh, it must be lina. And the Gemara says, no, it's a psul yitzia. It's the psul of going out too early. So basically what the Gemara is saying is that it's not compelling any way you want to read this. So whichever way you go, you'll say, oh, it's probably the other one. Yeah. Okay. Boy, Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar has another question. Param Manisrafim, the Sir Manisrafim, this is the previous Gemara, the last answer is like two boys saying, no, you did it. No, he did it. No, he did it. You know, when you try to say, who was the one that spilt the milk? He did it. He can never pinpoint. He can never, he did it. Okay, so by Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar has a question. Interesting question. The contamination of the garments of the people that are involved in the process, the garments become tummy. What time is the fast? People drink till they have before we put it away. I don't think that'd be good for the fast.
It's a bed.
So, the contamination of the garments of the people that are involved in the taking out is after the animal leaves the courtyard. Remember, we said those that were inside were still tarred. Okay, anyway. When the majority of the animal goes out, then the animal itself is what's giving, it's the animal that's giving off the tumah but it's when the majority of the animal goes out, then it would contaminate anyone that's involved with it. Okay, now, the majority of the animal, it becomes the majority of the animal because there's a one limb that the majority of this limb is inside, but the majority of the animal is outside because of this one limb that it just got up to the, what's a large inner organ? Let's say like the liver. It just got up to the liver, and it's like that little part of the liver is now considered 51%. But the problem is, if you look at the liver itself, majority of the liver is inside. Look at the animal itself, the majority of the animal has just become outside. So do you look at the big animal or do you look at the little animal? And should the organ consider it inside because it follows its majority, or does everything follow the majority of the large animal?
So Rabbi Spansky took a stuffed animal. It was a good muscle, and he kind of split it in half. He said, "Okay, half is in," and then he bent back the leg so that part of the foot was like this way in.
Right.
So he says, "Do you count that part that's bent in along with the 50% in, or because it's part of this entire limb that's out?"
Uh-huh. So this, I'm not really asking that. I'm asking something else. Asking, is it considered majority of the animal that's outside because it is the majority? It actually is the majority of the large animal, or because I have to look at it each individual and now since majority of it is inside of the individual organ is inside, and so therefore it's not really 51% that's outside. It's really 49%. It's my
2 minutes before.
2 minutes before the fast.
That scared me. I'm not used to this. Is it similar to the case that we had yesterday with the whole stretcher?
Yeah, Yeah, but now we're not talking about the people, we're talking about the animal. Is now the animal considered tamei that anyone else that's going to come along and deal with it should become tamei? Okay, so it goes like this. Hach miuta de aver. This what's the din? Hach miuta de aver basaruba shadina. Do I consider the minority of the limb to be like the majority of the limb, which means that it's considered v'halei nafkale, and now it's not. It hasn't left the azara, so it won't give off any impurity. Dilma basaruba de behema shadin, or do I view it as the majority of the animal? Let me make a burn fashas. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Pshita d'leishavkinu ruba de behema vazin basaruba de ivar." It's so obvious to go this Gemara. So what is the question? If it's the majority of the animal, you're not going to look at each cell. You're going to look at each. You look at the bigger, and the bigger animal takes over the whole story here, and it's considered the majority of the animal is considered outside. Ella rather shiyatza chetzye b'roi v'aver. The majority of the animal, the majority of the animal has left due to the majority of one of the limbs that's left. So now the question is, Hi miyuta de'aver, the part of the limb that's left inside the azara, do we say that follows the majority? And it's left the azara. Now the question is, I was saying that has to do with impurity if the majority of the animal left. There's one other issue. There's another issue here of if it becomes puzzle in the azara, then we burn it. What did Rashi say? If it becomes puzzle while it's inside, then we burn it inside. If it becomes puzzle outside, then we burn it outside, right? So the question is this part of the I guess we're talking about just that little part of the limb. If that becomes puzzle somehow, would we burn that inside or outside? Is it considered that it left because the majority of the limb left? Or do we consider it inside because it hasn't left? So Rabbi Bar Ravuna Masnila, he interprets this suffix of this question of Rabbi Lazar the following way. He says that it's talking about begavri. Have a certain amount of people that are dealing with the animal. It says, we're talking about 5 people are involved with carrying the animal out. The nafku tlasa, 3 of the people left. Pashalutre, and 2 of the people are left in. Mai. Do we say that the garments of the 2 people that are inside are tamei or not? Do we say that you follow the majority? And look, it's the animals outside because the majority of the people are outside. Do we say that you follow the animal? Do you follow the people or do you follow the animal? This doesn't seem to fit with what we were learning before, that there was the Mishnah said that the 2 people that are still inside are tar until they left. And what? So why is this a question if the Mishnah says differently? Yeah. The Gemara says we follow the majority of the animal, only exclude the concept of following the majority of those carrying. No, 1 second. we are dealing with a case where the animal has left the courtyard, or otherwise there is definitely no tumah, as explained in the Mishnah. The Gemara says we follow the majority of the animal only to exclude the concept of following the majority of those carrying it. Oh, so the word majority of the animal, somehow the animal's already outside, and the question is if the people inside are considered outside as well because their group is outside. That's what it sounds like.
I think yesterday we had like two
Uh-huh. Okay.
But I don't think it's a
Problem?
necessary difference. The last thing you said, if the majority of the animal is outside, then what was the last thing you said? Which makes it tamei. Then you said the question is whether people on the inside. No, I thought the thing was if it's tamei, let's say two people carried it. We said there was five, two outside. Let's say it was just four, two outside, two inside. So it's tamei, but I don't think the question is yet, maybe I'm wrong, on the two inside. If someone now on the outside comes to help them, a third person, that's the fifth person, to schlep it finally over, he automatically becomes tamei by touching that animal on the outside. So maybe the two on the inside are still not tamei because they haven't gone out. I don't know.
So you're saying that
I'm not sure. I'm
no.
trying to
The question:
visualize
Are we
this.
dealing with the animal becoming tummy, or are we dealing with the people becoming tummy?
So the moment the animal's tummy, even the people on the inside, you're
No.
saying they're tummy?
Well, that's what it sounds like. Well, the moment the animal's tummy, the people on the inside would be tummy as well.
I would think just anyone who touches the animal on the outside.
Oh, interesting.
That's my question. That's why the fifth person
I'm not
comes
sure. I
along
think
to
there's
help.
difference of opinion in Rashi and Taisros if we're
There's
dealing with the
always
animal,
a difference.
dealing with the animal or the people.
One of the notes says that some of the stuff that's quoted as Rashi might not.
Oh, really? Okay. By Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar has a question. Paraman Esrafim, Shiyatsu, B'chazru. The animals went out and then they returned. They came back inside. Will they contaminate Mahu? Will they contaminate the clothing of the people that are involved with them while they're inside? Mi amrin kivan nafkalu itzvalu. Do we say, well, they left? The tumah it goes on anyone that deals with it once it leaves, and now it's left. So I know it came back, but still, it would contaminate anyone that now deals with it. Dilma kivan the hadar. Do we say that now it's back inside? People that are dealing with the animal should not be, the clothing shouldn't become tummy. Amar Rabba Bar Mamal, Rabba Bar Mamal tries to give an answer. He says, Tashma, come and listen. Are you Saivlanaisan b'maitas? Let's say they're carrying it with sticks. Right? This was the stretcher that someone said yesterday. The first ones already went out. The second ones are still inside. But the second ones doesn't become tummy until they leave. Itmu, if it would enter your mind that once they leave, it becomes tame, even if they go back inside. Those that are inside should also become tame. If it has to do with the animal, once the animal passes over, so then the animal gives off tumah. So the animal passed over the threshold. The animal should give off tumah, and the people inside should now become tumah. Amar Ravina says, "V'tizbara, do you think that's a real proof? You're missing out on the way the psukim are being learned." It says, "Habeina va'achrei kain yavay alamachne v'leka." It says that the people that take out the animal, it says that their clothing become tameh, and then afterwards they have to clean their clothing and come back into the camp. But if they haven't left, then it's impossible for them to become tameh. So the people that haven't left aren't going to become tameh. However, the animal maybe is different. Maybe the animal does go out. And in the pasuk, I see that the people that haven't left, because it says, and afterwards they come back into the camp. they haven't left and they can't come back, which means that it's not referring to them.
I'm not sure to make it, but some change.
All right. All right. I guess that has to do with the years of Rabba Bar Mama. Ella Rabbi Lazar Hachi Baile. So Ella Rabbi Lazar Hechi Baile. So what was Rabbi Lazar's question? He's asking if the tumah is going to go on to the people that are inside. He's asking if the animal goes back in, will it give off tumah? That was his question. So who's the question on? If it's on the people that were inside the whole time, then they're not going to become tummy. It says Kagoin denekitale bakulsi. The question was like this: the animal went outside, then it goes back inside. The people that are dealing with it inside are not tummy. The people that are dealing with it outside will become tummy. How will they become tummy if the animal's inside? They have sticks that they're standing outside and then they're picking up. Is the animal giving off tumah because it has once previously been outside? Or do we say that it's not giving off tumah because it's back inside? But the people are outside. That's all we're gaining from this answer, is that the people that are dealing with it are not inside. People that are dealing with it are outside. Now the question is, does the animal give up the tumah that it would have? Because it's gone outside. Taner Rabbanan. You have a new brisa here. It says parim, para, besar mishtaleach. You have three types of animals. We have parim anisrafim, the bulls that are burnt. We have the para aduma, which is also burnt, the red heifer. Besar mishtaleach. This is the goat on Yom Kippur that's pushed off the cliff, right? Now it says about all of these. It says hamishaleach, the one that pushes that's sent along with the goat. Asarfan, the one that burns the paraduma. It says we know that the paraduma gives off tumah to the people that are involved with it, and it purifies those that are right. And purify it gives v'hamaitzian, and those that carry the parim anisrafim, the bulls outside the courtyard, all of them mitame begadim. They make the clothing of the people. These three types of people, tamei, vehinatzman. But the animals themselves, if someone touches those animals, ein mitam megadim. They would not. They would not contaminate the animal itself. Would not contaminate the clothing of the people that touch it. But it would give off impurity to food. So it has a lower level of impurity, even though the people that are actually working with it, carrying it, burning it, their clothing becomes tameh, but the regular sort of tumah, which comes with contact, that it won't have, unless it's food. Why? I think it means until it's burnt. You're talking about the paraduma? Yeah. Well, Divrei Reb Meir. This is the opinion of Reb Meir. The Chachamim say para uparim mitamanech lemashkim. When it comes to the para and the parim, the red heifer and also the bulls that are burnt, they do give off impurity, exactly like Reb Meir said, to food. Give off impurity to food. However, sar mishtaleach, the goat that's pushed off the cliff, ein metame, does not give off impurity. Shu chai, because it's alive. V'chai ein metame chlamashkim, and something that's alive can't give off any impurity, even to food. Bishleim Reb Meir. You can understand what Reb Meir is saying because we have a basis for Kedatana Bei Rabbi Shmuel. As it was taught in a brisa in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, the Tana Bei Rabbi Shmuel was taught in this brisa. It says in the pasuk regarding tumah, regarding impurity, it says al kol zera zerua. It says that on any grain that's been planted, it says in order for it to become tameh, it has to have water that comes on it. What makes it susceptible to tumah? What makes grain susceptible to tumah? It has to become wet. It has to have water, and the water has to be there when willingly that you wanted it to be wet. Mazraim. So and I notice it's called hechsher. It has to become prepped in order.
Sounds like a sukkah.
Oh yeah, if it's makabel tameh. Yeah. anything that's makabel tuma. But over there, for schach, you have to use items that are not makabel tuma. You can't use fruits. You can't use, and it doesn't matter if
it's just the opposite.
Yeah, it's exactly the
That's
opposite,
what I'm
right? Or kalim. Well, anyway, we're talking about now that in order for food to become tamei, any grain to become tamei, it has to be muksher, it has to have become prepped and kemaz roim, just as roim, shein seifel letami tumachamura, which don't have the severe impurity. They can never. Severe tumachamura means impurity that would contaminate a person or clothing. However, when it comes to grain, when grain becomes tamei, it cannot make a person tamei. Utrichim hechsher, and they don't become tamei unless there's water. So afkol, also anything shein seifel tamei, which cannot give off the severe impurity, trichim hechsher is going to need to be prepped in order to become tamei. Yatzis nevela seiftar, but there's an exception. Nevela seiftar, sheseifel tamei tumachamura. Nevela seiftar was the carcass of a kosher bird that died without shechita. So we said that impurity goes off not through touching, but through swallowing it. Remember, a kazayas of a nevela seiftar, a unique measurement. Said a kazayas, as opposed usually food that gives off impurity is going to be a kibetza or a kabeya, right? The egg size, a larger size. By nevela seiftar, we said a kazayas of a nevela seiftar would give off impurity to the person that's swallowing it, and his clothing becomes tummy as well. So nevela seiftar, so seifel tumachamura, that does give off the big impurity. It makes the person tummy and his clothing. And it doesn't need to get wet first in order to give off the impurity. Now, the throat one. And what we're saying now, you have to just clarify that it's not referring to ein tricha hechsher. It doesn't need to become wet to give off impurity to the throat. That's not what it's referring to. It's referring to if it's going to become tamei. We're dealing with a combination of impurity here. Having it gives off tuma to the person that swallows it, but it would become tamei even without getting wet. Because it gives off that strict impurity, it would become tamei. But what do I mean? It becomes tamei. It means if it touches a nevela, touches another animal that's a regular animal, so that piece of nevela seiftar becomes tamei. I think that's what's going on. So it doesn't need a prep, right? Okay, so according to Reb Meir, what we're saying now is that according to Reb Meir, that he says that these animals that give off impurity, if they touch food, the food becomes tamei. That's similar to what Rabbi Yishmael says, that nevela seiftar would give off impurity. Okay.
The food becomes tummy like in ova tuma?
The food becomes a rishon. Yeah. Ela l'Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan, let's say that the goat does not give off impurity. So, if he holds of a Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, that since you see the chiddush of Tana de Rabbi Shmuel is that anything that could give off a severe impurity does not need hechsher to become tamei. So if he holds a Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, then the goat gives off impurity, right? Because the people that are the person that the mishaleach becomes tamei, he has to wash his clothing before he comes back to the camp. So therefore, so that means that it gives off a strict impurity. Then it should also make tamei, be less lay. And if he doesn't hold Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, then afilu paraminal. And then how does he know that the bull in the paraduma give off impurity to food? So ki asa Rav Dimi Amar Amrid Marava, when Rav Dimi came, so Rav Dimi was the traveler, and he brings halachas from Eretz Yisrael. He says, "Tzrichem hechsher tuma mimakam acher." It's really the Chacham hold like Rabbi Shmuel. What Rabbi Shmuel means if these things themselves are susceptible to impurity when they touch something else. So when it comes to the Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel was saying that anything that gives off an impurity doesn't need to be wet for itself to become tamei.
So they're calling these other tools. Because they're saying they themselves.
Since they are an avatama,
Yeah,
so therefore they can receive tuma from another place without getting wet. Since they have their own avatama, they can receive from other places. What happens over here by the Sar Mishtaleach? We say that it's a Baal Chai. And a Baal Chai, anything that's alive, can never receive tuma, even if it can give off tuma. But a Baal Chai cannot receive tuma. That's okay. Let me try to summarize that. We had Machlekes Ramei and Chachamim about these items touching food. Will the food become tamei? We explained that Reb Meir would fit with Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel that says that anything that gives off impurity what were we thinking in the beginning? I guess it was just a simple comparison. We're saying that something that gives off a strict impurity can also give off the lesser impurity. That's what we were thinking. Anything that gives off the stricter impurity to a person can give off a lesser impurity to food. Then we had a question: so why, according to the Rabbanon, do we find that something gives off a stricter impurity but doesn't? But doesn't give off impurity to food. But by the Sar Mishtaleach, the goat it won't give off the lesser impurity. But we find that by other things it does give it off. So we're asking, does he hold like Rabbi Shmuel or not like hold Rabbi Shmuel? So we're saying now that regarding itself, it gives off the impurity. The problem is it's alive, so it can't receive impurity from somewhere else to give it off. So to make something else tamei, to make the food tamei. Boy, Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar has another question. Param usirim anisrafim. These two animals that are burnt outside. Maushi yitama ichlam amashkim b'fnim. Kibachotz. We know that once they're taken out, they give off a severe impurity, and that impurity is that the person's tamei and his clothing is tamei. But let's say it touches food. We say that since it gives off the severe impurity, it should also be able to give off the impurity to food before it goes out. Do we say that 1 second shouldn't be able to give off the impurity to food because it hasn't left yet? It's still inside the azara, so there's no tumah there. Or maybe we say that no, the fact is that taking it out is not like it's missing an action. Taking it out is considered like nothing. It's just moving it, and so therefore it's already able to give off the tumah to food. Yeah, we were saying the whole time that it's not tamei. That's regarding the person and his clothing. But regarding food, maybe it's tamei already. After Rabbi Lazar asked the question, he answered it on his own. He says that no, it hasn't left yet. It's not giving off impurity. Rabbi Abba bar Shmuel, supposed to be Rabbi Abba bar Mamal, Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Yes, Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Rabbi Chia bar Abba was a student of Rabbi Yochanan. It says Nevela Seif Tar. Remember we spoke about the bird, the kosher bird that gives off impurity to the body when he swallows it. It gives off impurity in the throat. The Beis Abliya. The Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, that said before that anything that gives off a severe impurity would also give off impurity to other food, right? Maushi tami bekazayas. If it touches other food, would it give off the food? Would it give off the impurity, even if it's not the size of a kabeya, but just the size of a kazayas? Just like we said before, that we drop some of the limitations of how tumma can be spread, because it's able to contract tumma in more severe ways. So we drop those lesser limitations. It doesn't need to get wet and all of those things. Maybe we should drop the limitation of a kabeya, the size of an egg, over here, and just use the size of a kazayas, because it gives off a severe impurity to the size of a kazayas. It should also give off impurity to food at the size of a kazayas.
This one, ingested.
Yeah, but we're saying that not for the person to become tamei, he has to ingest it. We're talking about, let's say it comes in contact with food. This bird that died comes in contact with food. We said before that something that gives off impurity, a severe impurity to a person, could give a lesser impurity to food. Oh, but nevertheless, it gives off this impurity. So, I'm sorry?
That's cooties.
Forget about it.
Okay.
Cooties.
The machta la'ara laiti bailach. We're talking about if the piece of this bird is on the ground, that we don't have any question, because we know it's not giving off. What do you mean it's giving off impurity? It only gives off impurity when the person is swallowing it. So it's not giving off impurity if it's on the ground. And the nakit bepume, if it's in his mouth and there's other food in his mouth, then like tibaylach, we don't have any question, because it's considered like he's ready to swallow it, so it's ready to give off the impurity. So it's going to give off impurity to the food that's in his mouth if he has two foods in his mouth. Ki tibaylach, our question is the nakit lebiyade, where he's holding it in his hand. Do we say mechusar kriva, the lacking the finishing to bring it towards his mouth, so it doesn't give off impurity? Do we say the fact is that what's the big deal? He just puts it in his mouth. It's already giving off impurity. It should be able to give off the impurity at the size of a kazayas.
Wait a second, that's a non sequitur. The last statement had to do with the bird falling on the ground. So let's say someone shot an arrow, killed the bird in the air, became in the
Good
vein.
shot.
Now it can give off tumor.
No, it doesn't give off tumah until he swallows it.
Wait, to a person.
Yeah.
But the last question was, can it give off tumor to other food stuff? And it landed in the food
So
patch.
it would give off tumah to other food if it was the size of a kibetza. Problem is that it gives off the severe tumah that it gives off to a person only needs to be the size of a kazayas. The question is, if the size of a kazayas falls onto food, would it give the tumah? So it says no, because it's not the right size.
But I'm saying, what if the whole bird fell into the food patch?
That's what we're talking about.
It's greater than the kazayas. It's greater than anything. So why? That was
so
the
as
last
a to give off tumah to food, it probably would. But it probably would, because it's bigger than a kabeya. But that's not our question. Our question is, would it give off the tumah the size of a kazayas?
You follow the shear, please.
I thought that was
so
the
kazayas.
Now, if it's lying on the ground, you need not even ask whether
the size.
Oh, you're saying that's not the question. This is the question. I'd understand it better if
Welcome
my
to
lawyer
the
would
shear,
just be quiet.
Welcome to the shear.
You have no idea what's flying, not even the bird.
Do we say that lacking in bringing it close to his mouth is considered that it's not going to give off the impurity? Do we say not? So he tells him, he answers him. He answers him. He says on the top of the page, he says, it says that it's not gonna. The fact that he didn't bring it close to his mouth would already give off the tumah even at the size of a kazayas. Oh yeah. Esvei Rabbi Mamal has a question to Rabbi Barabba. There's 13 laws that are said regarding Nevela Seiftar, the bird that wasn't slaughtered. And the following is one of them. Tzricha machshava. You have to, in order for it to give off impurity, you have to think about it that it's edible. You have to have thoughts that you're going to eat it. It also doesn't. Changes. Oh, it says there's only 13. I thought there were more than 13.
Only common.
Where did you read 13 changes? Let me ask. When they in the Greek, you're talking about the Greek term.
Septuagint.
How many officially how many changes were there in the Greek translation of the Torah? Does anyone know?
I think it was 70.
70.
That was the 70 sages. How many changes?
Oh.
How many changes did they make?
Two for sure.
I think it's a machloket whether it's 13 or 18.
13 or 18.
I think it's
I thought I had this. I had 17 in my head. Oh, that's in that Gemara in Megillah.
Woo!
Yeah, there's different. Okay.
We read in the name Yaakov last night.
So, okay, over here we have 13 halachas of the Nevela Seiftar. One of them is that it requires thinking that it's going to be food. Another halacha is that it doesn't need to get wet in order to get tameh. If it would touch a sheretz, it would contract tameh. And it needs to be a kabeya, to make other food tameh. Sounds like person's holding it in his hand, touches other food, needs to be a beya, not a kazayas. My love. We're saying over here, my love, the Reb Meir must be according to Reb Meir. That said, how do we know that it's Reb Meir? Because Reb Meir says that it can give off impurity to food. Yeah, we're suggesting that it's the opinion of Reb Meir, and nevertheless it needs to be a kabeya, not a kazayas. The Gemara says like Rabbanani, it's the opinion of the Rabbanan that don't have this concept that anything that gives off a stricter impurity can give off the lesser impurity. Badiktani Reisha, the problem is that if you want to say, to resolve your issue of the kabeya, you want to say that it's the opinion of the Rabbanan, Badiktani Reisha, the problem is, first part of the Mishnah says, Tzricha machshava, vein tzricha hechsher, that you have to think that it's food, but it doesn't need to get wet. Man shamat lehaisvara, who holds that it doesn't need to go wet? That's Reb Meir. That's Reb Meir's opinion that holds, that you don't have these limitations of how the tumah is contracted when it has the stricter impurity. So what comes out is midrash Reb Meir, seifin amar Reb Meir. Probably, if the first half of the Mishnah that says that it doesn't need to get wet to become tamei, probably when it says it needs to be a kabeya is also the opinion of Reb Meir, and that would be an answer to the question that you don't need a kabeya. Why do you tell me before that it's the answer question that you do need a kabeya? Why do you tell me before that it only needs to be a kazayas? The Gemara says midi area. Why do you have to say that? Hakadisa. The beginning of the Mishnah is Reb Meir. Maybe it's a brisa. It's a Mishnah, and the end of the Mishnah is the Rabbanan. It says no. But midiktani safe. If you go a little further in the Mishnah, it says shchitasam malikasam eteheres treifasam itmasa. If it's shechted, or malika is done because it's an animal that's kudshim, so then even if it's a treifa, but it still won't give off the impurity. Yeah, even though the shchita doesn't make it edible to be eaten because we find that it's a treifa, and the malika doesn't make it edible and make it acceptable to be eaten because it's a treifa. Man shamat lehaisvara, who holds that the shchita allows a treifa not to give off the impurity, or the malika would do that? Who holds that? It's Reb Meir. Reb Meir holds that. That was earlier on Daf Samach Tes. So if that's the case, then Reisha v'Sefer Reb Meir Mitziyas Rabbanan. This is really odd. Now we have the beginning of the Mishnah that talks about Hechsher, the end of the Mishnah that talks about the Shchita, and the middle of the Mishnah that talks about the that talks about the Kibetza, there's all different opinions. It's Reb Meir at the beginning, Reb Meir at the end, and Rabbanan in the middle. The Gemara says, yeah, that's not a problem. Reish of Sefer Reb Meir, Mitzias Rabbanan. That's how it is. Different opinions in one Mishnah. Amalei Rav Hamnuna Rav Zera. Rav Hamnuna says to Rav Zera, Leitesa Bakarach, don't sit on your feet. I guess it means don't sit on the ground. Adamatli Hamil, it sounds like they would sit like Indian style or something. Adamatli Hamilsa, until you explain the following to me. Nevela Seiftar, Reb Meir, Mainin La Rishon Risheni, Ayin Mainin Rishon Risheni. If someone eats the Nevela Seiftar, he becomes a Rishon Latama. If he eats it, it becomes first level, which the first level Tuma means that he can make a second level. Or Ein Mainin Rishon Risheni. Or do we say that he can't make a second level? But no, it's not talking about the person that's eating. We're talking about the Nevela Seiftar itself. That Reb Meir holds if it touches contact with food, it gives off an impurity according to Reb Meir. Is that impurity the first level, which could make a second level, or is it just make a second level directly? Amarlei, so Reb Zera says back to Rav Hamnuna, Kol hechen de betami b'maga, anything that would contaminate a person through contact, then if it touches food, that food becomes a rishon, and if that food touches other food, it becomes a sheni. Anything that doesn't give off impurity through contact to a person, so you don't count rishon risheni. Now, since the nevela seiftar doesn't give off impurity through contact, so then you won't count rishon risheni. It's just going to become tameh, but it won't be able to contaminate anything else. Had there's a concept where you need a certain size of food to be able to contract tuma. Has to be, like we said, a kibetza. Let's say we have two pieces of food, and each one is less than a beya, but however, there's liquid between them that's like oozing from one to the other. So do we say that that's combined, or do we say that those are separate? So we say, Chiburin oichlan al yidei mashkin. Chibur l'tuma kala, ve'in chibur l'tuma chamura. That's enough for a light tuma, but it's not enough for a strict tuma, for a more severe tuma. The light tuma means that it's enough to contaminate other food, but it's not enough to contaminate a person. Now, when we say that, when we say that it could contaminate other food, does that food become tameh in the way that it normally would become tameh, that it can give off tumah to other food, because it's touching nevela. Nevela is the avatama. It becomes a rishon latama, and it will give off tumah to something else, which is a sheni latama. Or or maybe we just say that it becomes tameh because this is like a lesser sort of tumah, because it's not a full size. It's only combined. It's only a full size combined through liquid. Amarlei, so Rabbi Ami Barchia, or maybe it's Rabbi Avin Barkana. He responds, if it can't contaminate a person, then you don't do the rishon b'sheni. It's only tameh, but it won't give off a second level tameh. Okay, let's leave it here. That's elu ve'elu. Okay, have a easy fast, everyone.